going to talk now about constant and variable speeds that you can animate parameters. This crop effect is happening in a very uniform way. It's happening at a constant speed. You can see that it crops in from the right at a constant speed. Now, this constant speed is also represented in this graph as a straight line. Now, if you wanted to change this to for instance, come in fast and then slow down, or come in slow and then speed up as it crops or as the parameter changes, then you can directly affect the graph itself. So if I control click on the second keyframe and change it to a smooth point, you'll see that it turns the straight line into a curve, and that curve has a handle that can be used to change the direction and the severity of the curve. Now again, just to reiterate what exactly is going on with this curve, or with the keyframe graph in general, we're talking laterally or horizontally across the x-axis. We're talking about the amount of time that it takes for something to happen, and the percentage of change is represented along the y-axis. So if you have a curve, then you're breaking the direct link between the amount of time and the amount of change. If you look at the curve, for instance, and if I pull this over and you see a sharp incline followed by a flattening out of the curve, that means that there's quite a lot of change happening here, but then very little change happening here. You can see that the difference at this point in terms of the percentage crop and the finished 50% is only a tiny amount. So if I put the playhead here, for example, you'll see that it's at 45%, and it yet has a half the amount of duration to go through. So it's going to happen very, very slowly. At the start, there's a very sharp incline, which means that in a very short space of time, it's going to cover quite a lot of change. So if I play this in its entirety now, you'll see that it covers quite a lot of parameter change in the first few frames, and then it kind of levels out and slows down. And that's represented by this curve. Now you can pretty much remember the way curves behave, in that if a curve is flat or almost flat, it means that there's not a lot of change happening. And in this case, not a lot of change means that it's happening very, very slowly. Now I'm going to change the first keyframe to also be smooth. So now I have complete control over my curve, and I can make it either sharper at the start. So maybe I'll try that first. So this will be really, really fast at the start, and then it'll slow down to a stop. And you can see that represented in the canvas. Now if I just turn that on its head and make this into the flat part, and this into the steep part, you'll see that it should very, very slowly start to crop in from the right and then speed up as it comes to the end. Again, this is represented by the curve. The flat part here means that there's no change at all. Then some slight change, and then some very, very quick change as it makes its way up this curve. If I change it so that both the start and the end of the animation are represented by a flattening out period, such as this part here and this part here, as you might guess, it's going to start slowly, speed up, and then slow down again. So you really have quite a lot of flexibility in how you vary the speed at which an animation or an animated parameter changes over time, just by using these control points. Now if you wanted to change this back to just being a linear or constant speed, then you would change that back to corner point. And you'll see that it now makes a corner. If I change this back to linear, you'll see that they'll both become corners, and where you have two corners, you've got a straight line in between. So linear refers to constant speed or a straight line. Smooth will give you a smooth curve, and it will give you variable speeds.